Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinity Awakens Naturally. So as I do love the natural process, the natural order of things and the natural world, I'm in my most natural state at the end of my day, looking a little rough and rugged. However, the more important thing here is for me to meet the call of my heart to receive a message today that I wanted to pass on. This is an illustration of what it is for me when I'm examining and looking at an environment where I think someone's calling me to help them, or I feel that codependent drive that, oh, there's a little broken, busted something, it must be my job to go pick them up, clean them up, and fix them up, and send them on their way, and possibly get tossed off to the side and be broken ourselves in that horrible little cycle. We're really meant in this period of time of evolution and change and revolution and change in our world. We're really called more to move into our own sovereignty and decide how we're going to move forward with divinity. Or if we're just not interested in that, then I don't know what people are choosing or not choosing. I just know that it's a really tight time to be choosing for ourselves how to roll so that we can get a message even when we're at our hairiest and share it with our friends or share it with someone who may be able to hear this and just know that even if my ego can't guarantee that it landed somewhere important, it landed with the need for me to answer my call of divinity, to answer the call. As we continue to answer the call, answer the call, answer the call, we'll know better the other people that are out there because we're filled with such joy and delight. I'm happy to be doing this video. I have no idea why it's this late at night, 1:44, except maybe that there's a bunch of chosen folks, light workers, people who are turning on, waking up and realizing, hey, I think I want to do life in a less brutal way. Those are my people that I look for. Those are the people that are on the path, and those are the people that may not always be the easiest to define. And so when I come across someone that chirps a lot and sounds like they want help, and they're telling me they want help, and they're rushing up on me asking for it, particularly if they're asking for materiality support, from me, I'm, gonna want to sit back and ask, does this person really need help? And the way that I learned that is through the natural world. 222, thank you. I like the natural order of things, and I believe that our spiritual evolution and our growth, if we follow the natural world, we can really just go on ahead and understand the cycles of birth and life and death, that cycling through will also bring the karma through. It'll also bring the dharma through. The more that we answer the call of what am I passionate about doing in this moment, and not really articulating too much. Not for me, it was never successful to get into that manifestation stuff where I delivered to the universe the exact something that I wanted. It never felt right, and the reason, pardon me, that it does not feel right to me is that that's not the most natural place that I could be, because I wasn't yet ready to even begin in that imagination space to ask for the help, and so I really needed someone that was more able to come along and say, yeah, less on the specifics of, looking for your great life in the future somewhere when you're digging around, trying to catch your breath, and trying to survive. Let's look at, do you actually want some help here? Because you look really, really, really a little bit, disheveled, and like you're a bird that kind of plopped down and is sitting down and looking very terrified, etc. And so because I've identified with that place of being just terrified by the world and not sure and feeling crushed by life like a little tiny bird, a little sparrow gets squished a bit, gets eaten by bigger birds, and it's prey to a lot of things. So I felt like that a whole lot, and so it's no surprise to me that I've had interactions with birds a whole lot since my awakening, since my obvious ego death. Let's just call it that, because my awakening is going to be, I pray always to be happening every day in me, routinely in different parts of me. So when I took my ego dump, and hit the ground, as I was coming up out of that, I found that I really resonated with birds. I'm an air sign, communication, and birds have been a significant factor in my life, though, I don't have any. I appreciate them more in the natural world, particularly the birds of prey. However, I also resonate with the sparrow and many others, and there's little songbirds all over, and I feed them here. So I've had an interesting relationship as I've gone through my healing to relate to birds. And so this is how I kind of work with the natural world to help me understand what it is to work with different energy when it's embodied in people. When it's embodied in a little bird that's this big, I can handle it better because I feel a certain amount of detachment from the experience with the bird. If I start overimposing or overlaying or superimposing, making up words in dialogue as I go, if I start superimposing my expectation of what that thing's going to be with the bird, if I bring a whole lot of attachment to that, it would be difficult to get the exercise. However, once I've been pulled away from all the trauma, drama, and the chaos of, oh, I'm just a little bird stuck here, I actually could get to the point of knowing that the person who saw me in my huddled down, position was a woman that saw me many years before I actually hit my ego death the hardest to make that impact noticeable and begin to really understand and totally integrate, really integrate, and totally really integrate what she meant. I could fully embrace, though she told that stuff to me probably 10 years ago. She saw a wounded, feeling, looking, I don't know, I was playing super wounded and I was very convincing. Yeah, nearly died, all kinds of stuff, very dramatic, and so I very much looked like that, and she wasn't making fun of it. She wasn't going, my God, what kind of a tragic thing are you? She wasn't doing anything except affirming what she saw, which thank goodness she did. She said, I see you, and when you see you, you'll know what I'm telling you. And she was absolutely correct. And because that woman, an outside force, was able to come and help me get back in touch with my inside force, thank you. It really made the difference between helping me to grip into some faith and some courage when things went down, when I went face down and had no resources and I've been, missing the boat a whole lot in my life up until now. Well, the way that worked out in my natural world today is that I drive to a different part of my state. Pardon me, I don't want to give too many intimate details. I live in Colorado and I work with the Bureau of Prisons a couple times a week with people that are going to be rotating back to the world and need some rehabilitative support. And so I would think, one of the most common questions that I get is a realistic one of, do these people have any rehab material? And what I've found is that it's the difference between looking at a little baby bird that might be struggling, one that really, wow, that doesn't look like it's going to be, very easy for this bird. However, if it can just get some, some protection from being a prey object, if they can just get some space, some sacred space to open up that area of themselves to believe that, hey, just trust me enough that we can open up this sacred space together and you'll get a peeky-poo inside of you. And that kind of engagement with that part of us, even the tiniest sliver, the woman 10 years ago that said, I see you, she opened it up just the slightest crack. However, I promise you that 10, 12 years later now, I'm a completely different person, and my trajectory had to go at whatever pace my body and my mind and my spirit and my soul and whatever, all of that packaging could get through realistically. So identifying the bird as, I just needed a few minutes for someone to see me, to notice that this is a little bird that's really feeling very fragile and is definitely susceptible to larger energies and larger predatory purposes than she's fully aware of. Let's give her a space. This woman said, hey, let me give you a space where I can help you kind of identify where your technique is not the greatest for survival, because you're having to live at the level of survival. None of that tracked, right? None of that tracked. I look like that baby bird. Well, the way that translates again is that when I go into the prison, I find it very interesting that I have a group, of 15 men, and I would say that at least 10 of them are actively engaged. They're looking for, sources of information, and in that protected space of, hey, we can hold this space open. You can see a part of yourself, and you can identify with that. And just to have that kind of nurturing in those few moments, I've had more traction, honestly, with people in the federal prison system than with some of the free people that I've ever known. I've gotten more traction with these folks, particularly the one that the class that I'm working with now, because they have more to lose than anybody I've ever known before. These are people that are sitting, in prison, obviously, for their crimes, and I'm not going to defend or not defend. It's not the point or why I'm there. I'm there to simply say that when I observe baby bird, that, okay, felon baby bird, however, is a baby bird looking to birth out of a new egg, from a new egg into a new understanding of themselves, the rehabilitated felon that no longer has to identify with all of the baggage and the doo-doo and the karmic balancing that has come with you're going to prison now to at least pay for what you've done, that society is going to put you there. However, the real karma begins with the payment to self with, ooh, I think I need to notice my big error, my boo-boo. Maybe I need to look at where I am. And we speak very honestly about this. And because we speak very honestly, these people are engaged, you know, the ones that are. And the ones that are not, I don't have to worry about it, because I'm not here to save people. I'm simply here to offer people that are going to be returning to the street a more useful way, a more useful technique for how they can return to the street without the street handing it back to them, triggering them back to their most wounded space when they might be still in kind of a fragile place. I don't defend terrible behavior. I do not defend criminal activity on any level, whether it's spiritual, financial, emotional, physical. It doesn't matter. Thievery is thievery, and thieving anything away from another person is me disrespecting their sovereignty. These people have made a decision in their soul to be where they are. And I have to respect that. I do. And I also have to respect every person who's engaged with them. And we talk about that and what they traded whenever they did whatever they did that brought them to a federal prison situation. I have their permission, by the way, to speak about this, even though you probably never know who they are. I did ask for permission before I speak. But what went on from the conversation, though, is that it's okay that I can honor the fact that all those people were harmed, they were harmed. I also, because I need to look at both sides of the stick, I can't be limited 1122 to picking up the convenient side of the stick that fits the story that I want to write. If I'm super, over here with going, I'm here to save people and help them get out of prison and be perfect and aligned to do life, wow, and as a spiritual being, haha, and then I'm over here with, they're all terrible, they deserve to, whatever, insert whatever the prejudice is from the outside of whatever their prejudice would be for the crime, the color, the, name it, it doesn't matter. The imbalance is there when we aren't recognizing that there's both sides of that stick. We have people who are there, who are, they're there for that reason, and then we also have to acknowledge that there are people there at that soul level who are ready to learn something different, and they want to. So anyone that's looking me in the face and is able to contain the conversation and be honorable in answering the conversation to me is very similar to an experience when I left today that I had on my way home. Excuse me, get things kind of twisted up, and I don't want to be confusing myself, much less anyone else. I finished up at the prison and I was on my way home, and there was a restaurant that I had been fasting in preparation for the 8/8, and I just needed to take a little break today to eat a little something before I go back into fasting for the 8/8 portal in a couple of days. And so I knew that it was a morning where I needed to eat, a little protein, get some eggs, etc. And so I'd never been to this place, and I decided to stop in. It was a total hippie vibe. I was right there, right on time for great. I've never stopped here before, and I come this way a lot. I'm going to be stopping here more often because there was just a whole vibe of we care about earth, we care about people, we care about our product. We care about feeding people nutritious food. We care about our wildlife around here. We care about our garden that is enormous. Artichokes this big, I swear to God. All right, maybe not that big, but they were definitely that big, and I want one. However, that's where they cultivate stuff for the meals that they serve. And so they're a self-sustaining community with just a line of cars outside their building consistently, and yet it's in the middle of nowhere. And when I say a line outside the building, it's probably 3/4 of the town showed up to get their breakfast. I mean, it's a very community-oriented place, and why I was always drawn to it. And when I walked in, I felt this oasis. I've just been to the federal prison where there's some, hardened souls in there. Also some cracking wide open souls, and they're dressed in different unis, if you know what I'm saying. They're ripping different colored jerseys, if you know what I'm saying. But when I'm left there, and that's what it seems like, is just horrible. And I come over here and walk into this oasis where, wow, this was so peaceful and so delightful. And of course, there's some people in the drive-through portion. This is actually a hometown restaurant that does a drive-through. It's amazing, and it's clustered when you try to get out of the parking lot. However, that's the charm and the fun of it. But they've got those people that are kind of grumpy there. However, the beautiful stuff is there as well. It's more of an oasis and more easily felt by going in there. And so I was chatting with the hipster people, the hippie people, and I brought my book To Kill a Mockingbird that I was reading, and that brought up a whole discussion that I didn't realize it was a banned book, but that's not why I'm here. exactly. However, anyway, we got to talking, and so I just felt like, wow, this is really the judge, you know? And so my judge over in a federal prison system is really going to be felt very differently in terms of how I'm sharing that, how intimate detail I'm going to get, how much of that baby bird stuff I'm going to get into actually, you know, putting hands in, depends on the bird and the environment that we are in. And so let me tell you, when I went to this restaurant, this charming little place, I just love it. I giggled and I said, oh, I've been coming by here 3 years and I never knew you're here. I'm so glad that now I do know you're here and what you're about, because it was time for me to introduce myself to that place and them to introduce themselves to me. I sat down with my quiche, which was a delish, and some fruit, and I was just enjoying a cup of coffee, which I've given up coffee, but boy, I sure did want one today, and so I had one, and it tasted extra yummy. Sacrifice makes for a really good appreciation when you finally get something that you'd like to have. Unfortunately, it doesn't do a whole lot for me, and so in terms of making it an addictive process that I can have it and step away. But anyway, I sat down and I was just taking in the environment, taking in all of the wonderful stuff that they had around for the people to come to play horseshoes, to go out in the maze, and to, you know, do little slide stuff, and to walk through their garden, to look at eggplants, you know, 2 giant eggplants in a potted thing on the side of my table. You know, it was huge, but just 2 random eggplants just hanging around there. It just felt like being in the midst of organic, live earth. It was so cool. And yet in the midst of all of that, the joy and the fun of, oh, it was brought down to the ground with, oh no, I'm in this beautiful place. Terrible stuff, I can't see that now. Sure you can, Kate, because it's life. It happens at a federal prison where you see eyes glowing in the midst of, what the, shouldn't see that here. Oh yeah, you should see everything everywhere. Because it is everywhere, and then cull down to finding those spaces that have most of what you like in front of your faces, and then, you know, go from there about how you enter those that you don't necessarily want to be in. However, when I looked over, I'm there just beaming and thinking, this is great. I've got sunflowers. Sunflowers are huge in Colorado. That's a big, I think it might even be the state flower. It's a big deal, and they have a lot of power. And so I'm sitting there feeling just this great thing, and I look over, little baby bird is just sitting in the ground, not too far away from me, but far enough away that I could observe it, watch it in its full understanding of other people coming towards it. And it wasn't moving appropriately. That you get a whole group of about 5 people. They're walking towards a bird about this big, and it looked like it was a juvenile, perhaps full grown, but it wasn't a baby. It wasn't one that just had been tossed out of the nest or something. However, it was just sitting there, and those people, unfortunately, were not so obtuse that they stepped on it. However, they were largely unaware of the bird, and the bird just kind of sat there and flinched a few times, and I thought, ew, gosh, I recognize that, oh shit, I don't know what to do. You know, I'm just lying here, and I thought back to my my therapist that told me all those years ago, I see you, I see what you're doing over there, and I see you, you're fine, you just keep on going. I did what she did. Same as I did out at the federal prison. I walk in and I say, hey there, little baby birds, I see you struggling. I see you. I do see you, and I see that you've got a little bit of about some of the stuff that we're talking about. Let me see if I can do something to open the space to help you heal long enough to remember that not everybody is terrible to you, and that better if we can open up this space, you'll feel the need to no longer be terrible to yourself just because you may have been terrible to somebody else. The kindness of a stranger that day for that bird, whether they were the jailbird or the live bird, no disrespect, honest respect, been in my own jails a lot in my mind, which is, not any better, I'm sure, in some respects. So anyway, the way that I helped the bird that was at that beautiful little outside area struggling was I prayed and I said, oh dear, am I getting a lesson in how to stand here and watch this? No, nobody said you had to watch stuff suffer. What was said is that you do not preemptively go in and start rescuing from the natural world, particularly because that's your teacher, Kate. That helps you deal with humans who superseded the logic and the process and the cycle of the natural world. So we're going to need to learn from the natural world. And so just observe this for a moment. You've observed the birds just kind of sitting there, dangerously perched on nothing. It's just kind of flopping around. So I walked over and I started just my hands and the intention that, hey there, sweet little thing, I'm here to kind of see if everything's okay, And the first thing of course, to challenge me was, I wonder what people think. I'm like, really? That's not a question I really ask too much anymore, really? Seriously, this is the look, and I'm going to really have this problem right now. Okay, no, I'm not. That was a mind programming thing. Oh, excuse me, delete that garbage. I don't have time for that. There's a bird over here that needs me to pay more attention, I feel, than if I wouldn't watch a child struggling either. I'm not going to watch something that looks like it's vulnerable right in front of me without tapping in to make sure that, oh yeah, that's a peck your way out of the shell moment, and it's just hard to watch you wiggle around and get stronger in that, getting out of your cocoon thing or your chrysalis. That's painful to watch sometimes. But when that's something that, that's just somebody that's fragile. That's fragility, that we can have superpower in our spirit. However, if our mind has too cracked or our body is just too overloaded with all the sensory overload and the chaos and the injury and the insult to our minds and our bodies, we might have a really hard time, have a very hard time being able to plug in to anything at all. And so those are the people that, when they're ready for that and they cross my path, that was the beautiful reminder. Federal prison or a garden, freedom out here in the outside world or the inside, the freedom is in the mind. I asked that little bird finally, because that was the lesson for me, is that, why would you ask us, Kate? Why don't you ask the bird if it would like your help? That if it doesn't, and you know that in your soul, or it flies away, flops away, give this an opportunity. You don't have to sit with the, oh my God, I don't want to be codependent. Well, then don't be. Go in with the intention of just checking out that you're not obligated to jump into salvation for anyone or saving anyone. You're not a save-a-ho. So you don't need to go in there like that. What you are, however, is save a soul for a half a second to say, yo, you need a minute to breathe and find out, do you in fact have flight capability here? Do you need a little lift to get you over there where you're more protected? Do you need, major intervention? And I won't know that as a light worker. I won't know that until I query that. And I did. And so thank you, Spirit, for the lesson of, it's not a matter of being codependently attached to people just because you want to help them, Kate. It's a matter of, how do you start that engagement? Make sure you go in knowing what you're doing, and make sure you know when that's beyond my ability or my capability, and listen very carefully to these soul messages that are coming through. That bird was very willing. Didn't answer me in spirit necessarily, but I could see, and it was so fragile and so sensitive. I stood back as far away and just said, I'm willing to help you. And because I was seeing improvement as we inched our way, I would get a little bit closer and it would kind of brace a little. And I'm not worrying about what other people are doing around me. I'm not sure if I finished that thought, but half a second of, I wonder what people think. Yeah, we're not on that time. We're zeroed on this bird, because this is a time drill for the bird. The bird's about 2 seconds away from becoming hawk food or something, and it knows that because it's looking around. And the family of the bird was starting to make all kinds of noise, is what got my attention. That, hey, you lightworker sitting at the table finishing up that delicious quiche, it looks very wonderful. We won't talk about that egg thing too much. Haha, just kidding. But we could use some help. Our little baby's over there. We know that you're noticing. So my natural world is inviting me to pay attention, please, to something besides, something else. This one is more of a priority, we think. Would you like to consider doing something? And I said, yeah, yes, I would. Yes, I would. And so asking the bird, listening to the family, and inching my way at the tolerance level of that bird was such a beautiful experience, because I've inched my way towards people that backed away 10 feet when I did it, but I kept going slowly towards them, like a lurking predatory thing that would scare a small bird. It's a matter of being very sensitive to understanding that there are, people, things, energies that are in fragile places that may reject the help. That one, initially, he kind of looked at me funny, and yet asking at a soul level, is there something I can do to ease your fear and to bring you to a place of, at least, can I get you over here to your family so that you're not quite so vulnerable to being eaten alive, literally. And that's kind of how I look at, working with people too, The men in the prison that I work with, on a soul level, I've already worked that up on my way. I have an hour drive to get there, and during that hour drive, I really set that up carefully because I'm working with a population that I'm looking to change your mind, dude. You have, short timers syndrome, less than 10 years, that's short timer syndrome in federal prison. However, that stuff changes at the drop of a hat with administrations and what have you. And so these people are people that if there was going to be somebody, that's just my particular work of being able to go into those places and hold the energetic spaces with containing that garbage of the dark stuff, because we don't need to talk about it. We know why you're here. It's already stated. There's no surprise. I don't have to call you a thug. It's already been decided that you're a felon, right? Yeah. Okay, so do we need to talk about your actual naughty behavior, or can we say that must have been some very impressive stuff to be here? And let's not discount the fact that people were harmed in that. I don't give them an out or say, let me rub your mad spot or hug a thug. Exactly. What I give is the reality of freedom is very much as much that bird could have told me no thanks and I'm not interested, and I could have watched a hawk come down and pick it up and its family go, uh-oh, wish that hadn't happened. The same as it's over there in the federal prison. I can watch people there self-destruct. It's a matter of knowing what is my work and what is not, and not to go into places just because I go into a federal prison and work with people that seem like they're bad. These people are more respectful than most of the free trainings I've done in mental health and given in public events where I've spoken, different venues years ago that I will never return to. However, those individuals have a whole lot more to lose. That little bird had a whole lot more to lose, and it was worth it at that point that bird decided, I'm willing to at least trust you. And whenever I got okay, I advanced a little bit and it jumped up on my hand, and I thought, well, golly, there you go, I've got it, and it hopped right down. Don't sit down with that, Kate, just because it got there. Let him or her, let this beautiful little thing that's trying real hard to trust you, don't lock it down into, well, must not want help now. Because there was progress, we could continue making progress. For as long as I would stand there and go, come here, come here, come here, and try to coerce or jam or cram or blow through and pick this bird up, or just sit there callously going, oh well, looks like hot food to me, or God forbid, celebrate, it just, any part of that felt imbalanced to me. And so being able to say, if you can trust me, then I can trust you that you'll let me know how to do this with you. And it did. And I told the family of that little bird that I know you're upset and I got your message and we're coming. We're on our way. We're coming. I just need to, maybe you can help him. And they chirped a little. And could we say this is all incidental? Sure, we could say it's coinky-dinky, we could call it synchronicity, we could call it all kinds of stuff, It doesn't matter to me because the experience of that was more about, I really would like to be able to help you. And I don't know that I rendered that bird the aid that somebody else might have thought that would net, which is that I saved it. No, what the clear message for me is that it's not about saving the bird himself or herself. It was about allowing a soul that was crying out along with others who were saying, hey, get the metaphysical on this and actually start moving the 3D. We could really appreciate that. It'll work beneficially for all of us. That can we get some help to just bring our little baby back home, bring our little baby back to the star tribe, the soul family, the God space, the more natural, nourishing, home feel environment. Bring it back to as close to the nest, source energy, as possible. And you just leave that with us and turn around and move on and do your day. Thank you very much. Very respectfully, of course, because I also can't be guaranteed that I'm going to save this bird. Means I'm going to save it. It's flown away and it lives a nice, healthy life and reproduces, beautiful little babies or something like that. If I'm looking to define this healing process with me and for me, through me, and with other people, other animals in the natural environment, I cannot, in a natural setting, ask the natural setting to accommodate my need to make it artificially look more comfortable to me. So it was sad to me in a way, and it did make me cry about every time I've been that baby bird that, wow, I got to eat my hawks a lot. That kind of pulled me in on that codependent thing, that, oh dear, if only somebody had been there to save me. Well, there wasn't, and that was tough. Many, many times it was very tough to get emotionally taken down by, bigger energy predators than I could really tolerate in my life. However, the superpower of having been through that experience was like punching my way. If you've ever seen Kill Bill, that was like punching my way out of a casket. That second one, when they buried her, this woman, and she's like, I don't think so. I'm going to just be whippersnapper, garbage, whatever it takes, youngster, I think he called her, just all kinds of diminishing things, told her that she was just garbage. I mean, it absolutely destroyed this woman on every level, the man that buried her. And she's the most superior in this movie series. She is the superior of, unaliver on the planet. She knows this technique to take out, life in a matter of seconds. And she also got her training through a real ouch experience. And so she became to understand both sides of that. She punched her way out of that coffin and said, nah, whatever that is that you said to me, that I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I'm too whatever, insert whatever words you were told. She was told something when she was thrown in there, and derogatory, of course, because it's meant to be personal and keep you from punching your way out of the whole coffin and everything else in mounds of dirt, which in reality, of course, we know, this is a movie. However, get the metaphor that we're going to be insulting. We have to betray you Judas style in order for you to go down and get this if you're going to rise up. Some people go down Judas style at the hands of a Judas, and they never get over the hurt and the pain of having been betrayed Judas style. However, when you get over that, you can then be able to assist other people who maybe they're just standing there going, I'm not sure that I know that I can punch my way out of mounds of dirt and through a coffin that's been nailed shut while people are, dancing on it, making fun of me and destroying any amount of hope that I have of surviving this event. Nah, I've had Pai Mei as my teacher, which is pretty tough. Yeah, I've got some bad memories with that. However, for purposes of this story, she learned that her passion for wanting to be near what was important to her was what allowed her the strength and the ability to heal and to punch her way through that. And for purposes of the movie, they sped her up through healing in a matter of seconds. However, it was the power of the mind that I got that helped me understand what they were trying to say, or what I took from the metaphorical and metaphysical understanding of that is that she healed rather quickly. She had superpower to break through because that was her designated job to do that. Now, in terms of that bird, what if, as if that was a person, what if that bird as a person was someone that just needed a few extra seconds to go, look, I know you got buried. I know you're in a very tight quarters in there and probably losing some O2. I know all of this. However, if you can hang with me, I'm going to show you how you're going to be able to get through this by introducing you to a space where you can ask your own self, look at your own face and say, oh, hey, it's nice to see you, and then return home to you, because all that squawking you hear around you is your family, the family of you asking you to come back to you. And so that little bird wanted to return home more than it wanted to be afraid of me. It was probably considering, what do I have to lose here? That I'm already out here and I know what my chances are and I understand who and what I am, then might be worth it. And on the second or third try, whenever I think I went like this, I had to continue to doing this or trying to something over its head. There were different things, and handling birds is just one of those things you have to kind of take it with what they can tolerate and where their injury might be. So I was trying to be sensitive, and I let this bird tell me. But if the bird hadn't been interested in doing so, I would have had to have left it there, right where it was, and that would have probably made the rest of my day very different. So I'm glad that I didn't have to do it that way. However, being able to place it in underneath the tree where the family was crying, to me, is the similar journey that I'm taking with some people, in a federal prison routinely, because I see people in there. I see human beings that are looking very similar to me. I'm very shocked to understand and know what I've done, and that, what do you mean that I have a heart? What? Yeah, and that I care about things, and that it might be more important to me to find a way for me to stay alive strong enough and capable to punch my way out of this situation, because I'm going to need to. If I wasn't a fighter before, in terms of a fighter for me, to not just survive but thrive through this event, then I really need to pony up. And what else better than a captive audience? And so there are people that have a lot of time on their hands to review, and those that really just don't have the strength, the constitution, the willingness, whatever, they aren't sitting in the class, because these people have something that matters to them. They're rotating out. They're the cream of the crop of a prison, and I got to tell you, they behave better than quite a number. Most of that class behaves better. They all behave very well. However, I've got fully engaged grown men with felony convictions behind them that I don't know the nature of their charges, other than they're not related to some things that I do not work with. However, the charges are strong enough that we're here, and you've been here a minute, and I talk to them about that and how we can cope. And the best thing that I can really do is to offer the idea that your family is calling to you. The family of you in here is calling to you, and whatever is important to you out here, to ask you to Black Mamba your way through this without being a destroyer like the movie. To be the destroyer of all the blockages within you, all of the places where we've been coffined down into believing that we were that. If I went to that bird and said, oh, you don't have the ability to heal, what a terrible thing it says. I'm asking a hawk to come by and prove to me that, yep, you've just identified the weak link here. Thank you for bringing a snack so early in my day. That's how we sacrifice people, too, is by identifying a weakness and doing nothing except turning a blind eye, or worse, we go and exploit it, or worse, we try and help it without really understanding what help looks like. So through these nature experiences out in the wild, of a federal prison, as well as out in the wild of, my regular day, it's a matter of observing, how is it that I'd like to do this? Do I want to be the Black Mamba in my world where, I need to be strong enough that I can really get through those days where I might be wondering about myself, I might be doubting, I might be going, wow, and this is a time during Mercury retrograde particularly. It's a message that applies all the time. However, during real high energy push times, whenever, we're subject to question ourselves and doubt ourselves, oh yeah, that's going to happen. And how's Black Mama going to heal or get better or be able to move on and get to what is most precious to her in that particular movie series? What's precious to her, not precious to what somebody else decided was precious to her. She decided for her. That's how she became Black Mamba, and she wasn't going to take another Pai Mei event from anybody, including Pai Mei. And at the end, she won. If you haven't seen it, doesn't matter, she won. If you want to see it, yeah, Kill Bill. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you very much. 36:36 on the clock. Thank you very much. And yep, it's time. My cat's coming over to scratch on my chair and say, yo, yo, time to feed me right here. So I hope that you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And I do know that if you get within your skin, friend, you're divine. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely fine. And it can lead you through those evolutions with people, with critters, with your natural environment, to simply ask. People ask me, well, how do you ask? I don't know, you just ask, I say it in my mind and I talk out loud. And, people that give me techniques, or they say, well, what's your process? It was the willingness to start asking things and looking like a fool and standing down in an outside garden and, practically laying down flat on my belly, not giving two hooties about whether or not I look like a fruity. I don't care. I already have. I've already looked like a whole ding-dong in my world. What else do I have to lose? I'm a lot like those people in prison over there and that bird over there. What do I have to lose? I can possibly gain some knowledge on how I can help the overall collective situation through a metaphor and an actual bird that I might be able to help. I'm going to help it at least not be breakfast right away. And his family, I feel certain, those dialogues don't come up with anywhere that I would have plugged up, stopped, or said, well, I don't know. I probably shouldn't do that. A should comes up in my mind, I'm going to be inquiring immediately. Pardon me, who said that? I don't use should. Inside of me, that's a programming thing, because it would be the only thing that would keep me from asking, why wouldn't I want to step in and stop another living thing suffering when I can see that that's what's happening? It's a matter of what will happen in that evaluation process. I cannot push myself upon someone, something. That little bird has its sovereignty, and if it was not willing to hop into my hands, I wasn't going to give it another try. Like, look, friend, I'll give you these tries, and I'm going to listen very carefully. I think this is the one that you're making the decision to get on in here, and I'll give you a few minutes. However, if that dragged on into, 20, 30 minutes later, you've overstayed your welcome, Kate, and you're learning a lesson about you're late on time to disengage. You missed a message somewhere, unless it was continuing to evolve in steps that we were making towards progress. If we were hitting the same up on my finger and down, up on my finger and down, that's, you're rotating around and around and around and around, and this isn't that. So we're not doing a square dance on this. So anyway, as I said, I hope that you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in, and remember to get within your skin because you're divine. Oh my goodness, it's so, so, so beautiful, so very fine, and it will remind you every single time. Get in touch with it. Might take you a minute, but start the inquiry. She, he, it, they, all of it, the natural world, all of you is waiting to talk to you. So take care of yourself, and I will see you again next time. Goodbye, friends. Mwah.